Good morning, everybody. This is Francois from the EIPM. And this afternoon, we will discuss a fundamental activity of procurement, which is the recruitment. Recruitment is fundamental because it's about the renewal of our resources, the renewal of our practices, and transformation. So, what's the problem? Why are we speaking about recruitment? Procurement strategies need to adapt to markets which have changed, which have become more powerful. So we need different skills than before because the markets have changed. Procurement is more recognized within companies, and we're more strategic. We're more seen as strategic, which means that the expectations have become higher. Our scope of value has changed. We were used to manage price and reduce prices only, but we are more and more associated to cost avoidance, cost reduction, risk reduction, and even innovation. We have grown in maturity, and because we are more mature and because what is expected from us is more mature, we need more competencies. Our image, who we are, how we are perceived, is also made by the ambassadors, our ambassadors. And who are our ambassadors? It's ourselves. It's the people we recruit. It's the young people we take in. So we have transformed a lot, and it's still expected from us that we will transform. We will introduce radical changes. If we want to do so, if we want to be recognized as such, if we want to manage a high scope of value, if we want to be perceived as strategic, all this converges into who are we recruiting? Are we recruiting the right people? We need to recruit mature people. We need to recruit high range, high potential. We need to recruit transformational people. And this is what this webinar, ladies and gentlemen, is about. So the objective of this webinar, our intention is to go into the details of how do we recruit, which competencies do we recruit, and we will go through new skills to deepen the level of knowledge, introduce disruption in the procurement population, but also introduce disruption within our companies through procurement. And we will discuss this, become probably more social, acquire more social skills. We will speak about entrepreneurship. We will speak about heroes. We will speak about disruption, contradiction, a lot of things which are behavioral, which are attitudes, which are mental skills. So we need to develop these new mental competencies and learn more behaviorally to transform ourselves, to transform procurement, to transform our companies. So what we will go through in an hour is a series of themes. We will make a little introduction on what is discuss the skills, the new skills which are needed. We will make the examples of some specific people which are good to recruit, heroes, heretics, outlaws, visionaries, and then we will focus on more advanced topics, notably the power of disorientation, the composition of the staff, and the integration and the onboarding of disruptive profiles. Right, this is what we're going to speak about. Let's start with a little introduction about our leadership in procurement and what we want to leave behind us. Recruiting is building the future that you want. Recruiting is putting in the procurement function and in your team the DNA that you want to be in. So who you recruit will make who you will be as a team in the future. So that is the legacy that we want to leave behind. Legacy is what we will leave behind ourselves. In order to leave procurement a better place for current and future generations of buyers, and we need to understand what we will bring, what will these people, these new people, recruited people will bring. Some people will bring more of the same, right? Uh, they will renew skills which we already have to reduce costs, to reduce risks, to assure supply security, to manage suppliers, etc., etc. Some people will bring new skills, something completely novel, like the power of entrepreneurship, like the power of the innovation, like an ambidextrous ability to execute a process and at the same time to explore new ways, new skills. And maybe other people will bring us what we call the no thing. What is the no thing? It's things that we are not even imagining yet. We all want to collaborate and bring value to sustainable development, to innovativeness of our company, etc., etc. Maybe for this, we will discover that there are some people with some competencies that we are not even aware of today. That is a no thing. We don't even know that we need it, but we need it. Right. The first question that arises is, what is your North Pole? What are you after? This is what we call the intended legacy. What is it that you want to leave behind? If you don't have a clear North Pole, your organization will not make sense. Your message will not have meaning, and management, of course, will be kind of egocentric. With a North Pole, with an intended legacy, if you know what you want to leave behind yourself when you will be leaving procurement, then of course all your recruitment can collaborate to that value, to that North Pole, to that legacy that you want to leave behind yourself. And from there, you can define a quest. What is the difference between a legacy and a quest? This is a little slide about the theory of it, right? A legacy, what you leave behind. The quest is what you're after here and today. So the quest is short term. The legacy is long term. The quest is instrumental to the legacy. It's the way to leave the legacy. Example, to make it short and simple. Columbus, his legacy to the world was a new world for Europe, right? His quest originally was a new passage to the east, discovering a new passage to go to India. Mandela, his legacy at the end was a non-racial society, but his short-term quest when he was an active man was to fight for political power and recognition in his country. Elon Musk, his quest here today, short term, is solar technology, but his legacy, maybe one day to have collaborated to the protection of the environment. You understand? The quest is what we are doing today. The legacy is at the end what you will leave behind yourself. The legacy has to do with your leadership. The quest has to do with your action. Now you understand that we spoke about the North Pole. Legacy has to do with that North Pole that you have to define. What is it that you want to leave behind? The quest may be the recruitment. The quest is instrumental to the legacy. The recruitment of new people in procurement is instrumental to what you want to leave behind yourself when you will change jobs. So you have to define that recruitment quest, right? What is it that you're after? What kind of people are you willing to recruit? What kind of competency do you want to bring in the procurement function? Right. Let's have a look at that. New skills. New skills for procurement. We'll go through a few of them. The world is changing. Procurement is changing, and procurement needs to adapt to a new world made of different types of markets, made of different types of technologies, and made of a very different value expected from the procurement function. So we have to change DNAs, and if you are recruiting people for the procurement department, you need to recruit the DNA that will fit the future. and they're not the DNA of the past. In the past, the procurement function was so-called inside out, right? So we knew how to do procurement. We had processes, we had tenders, we had strategies, etc., and we were applying this to the supply markets, right? It was short term. It was performance. Oriented, and it was trying to predict performance, try to make the reality look like what we wanted. So basically we were defining things inside procurement and then projecting in outside procurement to make the supply markets execute what we wanted. The new procurement, of the future of procurement, is probably to be the contrary, to be outside in. It's more long term. It's more focused on the various opportunities and threats that may arise in the next years. And it's based on the fact that the world is changing and that we want to anticipate change and that we just have to adapt change. So it's very humble. It says, let's look at what will happen and we will adapt procurement. You understand the big difference between the inside out and the outside in is that inside out, I define and I try to make the reality execute what I defined, my original goals. The outside in, on the contrary, let's have a look at the opportunities are and I will adapt. So inside out tries to adapt the reality to our goals. Outside in adapts our goals to the reality. I remember a conference, right, where a big consulting company, A.T. Kearney, said 3 options for procurement: take the lead, create value, or be extremely operational, or just die, right? That was 20 years ago. Not a lot has changed in 20 years, but we have moved positions in our battlefield. We went from price pressure to DCO initiatives to performance management, continuous improvement, to innovation management. In other terms, we changed from passive to more proactive towards change and towards market. And we moved from pure spend management to something more of the top line: revenue, contribution to revenue, contribution to the asset, contribution to the overall value of our company. So we have already started to move positions in the battlefield. Procurement has completely transformed in 40 years, right? We changed DNAs, and from a function that was basically aiming at serving factory and reducing costs, we moved to a function which is more an SRM function, trying to see how we can contribute to revenue and profit. So we changed DNAs, but by changing DNAs, of course, the skills that we need have changed. 60 years ago, buyers needed to be effective, to be reactive, and to be analytic. A lot of rational analysis and decision making, critical analysis also. Today, what we expect from buyers is that they are creative, that they have a cognitive appetite, they like to learn, they like to discover new things, that they have a mental plasticity, that they can change their mind very easily, that they think long term, that they are perceptive, that they see a lot of weak signals, and they like to put themselves in the shoes of the suppliers to try to perceive other things, and that they have a kind of empathy to understand the other party, and that they are very socially proactive, which we call social entrepreneurship. So you understand, from the left to the right, we've changed the skills expected from procurement, and all these skills on the right are more soft skills. They're more mental skills. Right. let's go into these new skills needed. We'll go through a list of them. The first one is the understanding of the other party. What is this about? The ability to put oneself in the shoes of stakeholders or of important suppliers to accelerate the understanding and the action. So it is the ability to consider the other's interests, the other drives, the other emotions, so that we can integrate all this into a common dynamics. Another skill which is needed is social entrepreneurship, the ability to undertake initiative with others, to span boundaries, to contact people that we were not in contact with, to create common dynamics, and to elicit a sense of belonging or identity. Another skill that is needed is charisma. Charisma is slightly different from social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship is relational. It's making things with people. It's onboarding people in common dynamics, in teams. It's making everybody work with you. Charisma is more dispositional. It's more distant. It's a more distal position. How do you create followership from others? How do they like to hear you, listen to you, read you, right? Social entrepreneurship happens with people you know. The charisma may happen with people that maybe you don't know, right? They just read you. So it's the ability to create that followership without being necessarily involved in an active relationship. Another skill that we need in procurement is this ability to be perceptive, ability to perceive all kinds of informations of different types, and notably weak signals, and notably information on their business models, and notably information about intentions, notably maybe some hints about the emotional state of the people that buyers are negotiating with, or their suppliers involved in meetings. So at the same time that we are acting, that we are doing, that we are negotiating, that we are facilitating a business review or a supplier meeting, we carry on perceiving all kinds of information from the supplier people themselves, from what they say, from their organization. This is an extremely important skill for the future. Long-term thinking is obvious. We need to work more and more long-term, more and more of SRM, agreement with supplier. So we need to be able to project the evolution of a situation, of a deal, of a market, to think about different scenarios. What will happen when I start this new relation with the supplier? What will happen in 10 years' time? And envisage all the kind of reactions we have to them. So when we are saying scenarios, we are saying many scenarios, optional scenarios that we have to draft for the future. Another skill that we need is cognitive appetite. It is the willingness and the taste to know more, to learn, to unlearn and relearn, and to constantly transform oneself. The ability, the desire, the taste for learning and changing and transforming oneself all the time. And we need that skill more and more because the markets are transforming, the companies are transforming. We live in a world and in a context of constant change and accelerated change. So we need to learn and transform all the time. Another skill needed is plasticity, mental plasticity. You know what plasticity is about? It's the ability of deforming and reforming. So it is the ability of changing one's conviction, changing one's ideas about procurement, about our job, about our role, ability of changing completely frame of understanding, just transforming one's operating modes to reformat the perception and the thinking. Another Skill needed is creativity. We need to understand more and more of potential innovation, potential new ways of doing things. Creativity is the ability to generate new cues, new ideas, to generate novelty, to create diverging solutions, to elaborate new systems, to construct new concepts. Another um, another point is indeed the fact that all these skills change a little bit the focus of our value. You can see here a series of surfboards which represent the values that a buyer can have, or the value added of a buyer. A buyer can be hired to manage risks, to execute a process, to change the offering, to change the customer experience of our products, to modify, change, influence the market, to change and to contribute to the brand or even to the business model and the game. You understand that from the smallest surfboard to the biggest surfboard, you have a small impact or a big impact on the final value. When you are on the small surfboards, you need the processing skills, the ones that we've always had for 60 years, being adaptive, managing complexity, understanding, long-term thinking, to develop the bigger value. We need to have more explorational skills. How cognitive are we? How divergent is our thinking? How explorative are we? So the more explorational skills we have, the more creative we can be. At the very end, to make a long story short, if you think about the evolution of skills in 60 years in procurement, we've moved from the big Hulk to the small, speedy Gonzales, right? The big Hulk needs power, leverage, strategy to persuade, to align, to force alignment. These are skills which have to do with the position of power. It's not our case anymore. Our position is to follow the change, to follow the trends, to understand, to be extremely plastic and adaptive. And the skills needed are agility, speed, ambidexterity, being explorational, being able to influence, to convince, to persuade, to leader. Right, let's go now into some details about the type of people that we need. We spoke about the new skills that we need. We're now going to speak about the people that we need. And we see several types of people, heroes, heretics, outlaws, visionaries. We'll have a word on each of them. Uh, First of all, we need what we call heroes. So what is a hero? What does this mean? A hero is an example to follow. It is somebody that exemplifies a new goal to reach, or an exemplary method to be followed. So he or she is somebody who brings an example of what we would like to become in the next years. So it is somebody to copy. It is somebody to inspire from. Right. Um, the problem is that heroes are usually eliminated by organizations. So we're saying that we need heroes, right, in procurement, but culturally, heroes are not welcome. Heroes are rejected by organization. They get eliminated because they challenge all of the others, because they push all the others out of their comfort zones, because they increase a kind of inter-individual competition among people. So you understand, we need them, but if we don't do anything, they will be rejected. So we need to recruit, to find them, to recruit them, but we also need to onboard them, to embark them in such a way that they will be welcomed by others and not and not rejected by others. So how should we detect them? Heroes are frequently people who have had significant results, who have taken prominent initiatives, who have very innovative methods. Heroes are people who have proven to show very good results. Where should we find them? At competitors, at strategic or key suppliers, or sometimes in projects, in internal functions, uh, people who have entrepreneured something within our company. How do we manage heroes? We need to give them space, set very generic objective, not too tight, very generic, but extremely demanding. We need these heroes are examples to follow. We need to be extremely demanding in what we ask. But then, of course, to let them the freedom to read, to find their way, to choose their way on how to read it. Right. Other people that we may need are what we call heretics and outlaws. What are these people? Heretics are people who advocate an opinion uh, that is currently rejected. So they're saying something that is unbearable, right, to us. But in this something which looks unbearable, in reality, there is a truth. There's something very valuable for the future. Outlaws, small, close to it, but not exactly the same, are people who break the rules. They allow themselves to deviate from what's mandatory, to deviate from the processes, to make themselves free from all kind of impeding structures. And they're able to detect roadblocks and to move them away. So, what is a problem? Well, you understand heretics and outlaws. One is saying something that people don't want to hear, and the other one is allowing himself or herself to do in a way that is not permitted. So basically, they get burned or they get sanctioned. They are rejected too. Heretics because they contradict the creed, because they are seen as morally unbearable. Outlaws because they disrespect what the others respect. Right. So that is very paradoxical and it's more complex than heroes because we need probably to recruit these people. Because what? Because for heretics, there may be a truth in what they say, that, and this truth we want to bring in the organization, the procurement organization. And the outlaws, by being free from the processes, they make disrupt the processes and make it change and make it evolve. Right. So how should we do? First of all, detecting where they are. Heretics and outlaws are usually can be detected within the organization because they've made valuable mistakes. Right. Valuable mistakes are mistakes that they've made, but in which there's a value, there's a truth, there's something interesting, and they have shown to learn, to have learned from these mistakes. Or people who have a gift for contradiction. So they may be difficult people to live with for others. They may have negative relations, but what they contradict is interesting. They contradict the business methods. They contradict the business model. They contradict the interests. Uh, Both of them, heretics and outlaws, can insist on marginal and lateral opportunities. So they usually insist on something that they feel true and that they feel that others should hear. And since they see that they are not heard, they insist and insist and insist again on such opportunities. When we have the proof that they've been right, but they have not been recognized as right, then obviously they may be people we should integrate into a procurement team. Where can we find them? At competitors, at critical suppliers, at opinions that have been rejected, people who are on the ban, who've been they're not. They're not fully integrated in teams. They work pretty individually somewhere. Right. How should we manage them? The heretics and the outlaws. We should definitely decentralize and delegate authority for heretics. Leave them the freedom in a special space. They should define their own objectives somewhere. Just delimit the boundaries of the space. But within that space, they are able to do as they want. Outlaws like to experiment. They like to contradict the processes because they like to try things new. So we have to leave them space for trial runs. The last type of profile that we may need in procurement is are people who are called the visionaries, people who have a vision. So who are visionaries? They are people who have an intuition about the future, and they are able to select the right path amidst of many. They have a clear vision of where we need to go. They have an acumen. Reality is complex, it's plentiful of many information, but in that complexity, they have crystallized a clear vision about what is going to happen and what way we should take. So the problem is that visionaries are frequently ignored. Why are they ignored? Because their fantastic vision is disrupting. It disrupts our routines. It pushes us out of our comfort zone. So they're not completely rejected, but they're ignored. Where should we find visionaries? People who have been very innovative in their methods, who have detected novelties, people who have taken very prominent initiatives and got significant results on them. Where should we find them? Um, entrepreneuring functions, projects, crisis management. How should we manage them? All visionaries should inspire the team. So contrarily to the others, they should be very much in contact with the team. We should manage them apart. They will probably have different KPIs, different rules, different goals, different targets, but they need to be exposed to the team so that their vision is inspiring our team. Right. We're going to switch to another topic, which is the power of disorientation. And that applies to heroes, to heretics, to outlaws, to visionaries. It applies to all kind of profiles which are not ordinary profiles. When you integrate them, when they are coming in the team, they are so different that they create a disruption. They create a disorientation. People are disoriented by that new person with a different profile, another way of thinking, who allows himself or herself to break the rules, who allows himself or herself to say things that the others would never allow themselves to say, etc., etc. So it creates a disorientation. Now, what we're saying is that this disorientation is positive. This is a positive disorientation which creates a transformation in people's mind. So this is what we call transformative learning. The disorientation created by the arrival of these new people in the team is powerful because it's disorienting others, and this disorientation is a positive, powerful disorientation. So how does it happen? Usually there's a little process, right? You have recruited somebody, a hero, a heretic, an outlaw. You integrate him or her in the team, right? And that recruitment disorients many others, and notably his or her team members. So what will they do? First of all, they will self-examine, saying, what do we do differently, we the team? What is the difference between that strange person newly recruited and us? Then they will develop a sense of alienation. What that person, so let's put it the other way, what does he or she do differently? And maybe they will start to see that, in what he or she does differently, there may be something interesting and something that I could catch for me. catch for myself. Then they start to compare with others. Have others experienced the same? Have other teams integrated that difficult people, that strange people, that disoriented people, and how did they do? How did they integrate that person in the team? And then they start to explain options for a new behavior, or explore options, sorry, for a new behavior. Let's say, so if this person has been recruited, maybe we ourselves, we could change something in our way of doing. And then what are we good at? What can we do differently? What will we do differently? And they start to plan a new course of action. Then they start to have the success loop activated. What is the knowledge to implement plans? What are the new roles it generates? Who should do what? And they integrate this with what they were doing before. So this is a little process to be shocked, and then reflect, and then adopt the disruption brought by the heretic, by the outlaw, by the visionary, or by the hero. Now, what are the practical implications of recruiting a disorienting profile? First of all, a disorienting profile can make us achieve new assumptions, such as changing the supply relationship, moving from a competitive approach of suppliers to a more collaborative approach of suppliers, changing types of strategy. We were having a strategy toward the supplier. After the integration of that new person, we will change our views, our strategy, our conception of the strategy. Changing procurement organization. Recruiting a disorienting profile may push us to think more laterally about lateral opportunities. What is it that we do differently? What we can do differently? Other costs that we have ignored until now? Other sourcing scenarios, sourcing strategy, in-source or outsource? Other formulation of the needs? Other business model? Other types of suppliers? So thinking about lateral opportunities that we did not think of before. Recruiting a disorienting profile may also induce a bigger capacity, a bigger ability to manage paradoxes. And there are many paradoxes in the procurement function. Should we focus on cost A or on cost B? Knowing that cost A is big when cost B is small, and cost B is big when cost A is small. That's a TCO balance. Should we focus on the price or on the TCO, cost plasticity? Should we reduce costs or reduce risks? Should I focus on KPI number 1 or KPI number 2? So there are many paradoxes, and the good way to manage a paradox, of course, is to keep a balance between all this and not eliminate one of the options of a paradox. Recruiting a disorienting profile may help us inspire from others, and notably from the person that we have recruited. So we may inspire from the person we have recruited, notably when he or she is bringing new knowledge, new information from outside. Example, a new person recruited may push us to benchmark internally, compare others with other procurement teams, with other functions than procurement, to benchmark externally, compare ourselves to other buyers from other companies. There are more and more alliances between companies, which, even if they are not from the same industry, exchange about their practices. Recruiting a disorienting profile may also end up in re-engineering the processes and adapting the stakeholders to these new processes. So inspiring imitating from these people who bring something novel, who bring something new. Recruiting a disorienting profile may also help us listening to the affective side, to emotions and feelings. When we're speaking to our stakeholders, when we are discussing their needs, when we are listening to key suppliers in negotiations which are hard, when we are shaping the needs, what are the desires? What are the fears? What are the aspirations of all these people? If we manage to catch, hear, listen, perceive these emotional cues, probably will gain influence in the organization. Sometimes recruiting a disorienting profile may help us to become more intuitive, notably as for solving problems, as for enforcing radical change, and transforming organizations. Last but not least, recruiting a disorienting profile may help us or may train us to handle conflicts. Right. The problem is that, of course, when you're recruiting a disorienting profile, you're recruiting somebody who is kind of antagonist uh, to your team, to your team spirit, to your team habits, to the profiles of the people of your team. So that will create a kind of paradox in the team, and that is a problem. And the key thing is to understand that this paradox is a power. This paradox is a chance because that makes you able to have a good balance of different profiles. So this is what we call polarity thinking. If you think about two people, Mr. A and Mrs. B, Mr. A is somebody you have in your team for many years. Mrs. B is just arriving, and she is coming. She is an alternative profile. Both A and B have benefits, have qualities. Both have risks, right? So if we go only for Mr. A positions, there will be the benefits of A, but there will be also maybe the risks and drawbacks of Mr. A. If we go for Mrs. B only, uh, we will have other types of benefits and drawbacks. While polarity thinking is don't choose, keep A and B. And maybe you can't have them work together, but maybe you can move from A to B constantly. So you see this kind of infinite sign. You go from the benefit of A, but when you go for the A option, together with the benefit, you have the drawbacks. And when the drawbacks become too high, then you go for B, but you keep A. You go for B, and you use the benefits of B. And when the drawbacks of B become too big, then you move to A again, and it never ends. So you alternate between following the opinions of A and following the opinions of B. You keep A and B because you want to be able to follow A and or B at the time that you want. You need to have them, both of them in your team. But then the way that you manage them is that you have a kind of pendular movement between the opinions of A and the opinions of B, because both of them can be valid and useful to the situations you're in. What are these polarities? Oh, we have many in procurement, right? Should we reduce price or TCO? Sometimes when you reduce price, you increase TCO, or sometimes when you reduce TCO, it is at the cost of accepting a higher price. Should you tender suppliers, or should you choose one supplier, marry them, and just partner them with no tender anymore for 5 years? Should you go for competition or cooperation with suppliers? Should you be more reactive, sitting and waiting what the stakeholders will be willing to buy or for you to buy? Or should you be proactive, going into the market, finding new solutions and bringing them to the stakeholders, saying, look what I found on the market, and this is probably what you need? Should you stay local, buy local, or buy global? Should you exploit the existing processes, or should you explore new way and build new processes for anything that you buy? You understand? Polarity thinking is don't choose. You have to do all of this anyway, and you have to be able to do all of this. Build a team where you have price-oriented people and TC-oriented people, competitive people and cooperative people, reactive people and proactive people. Right. Last but not least, the integration of disruptive profiles. How to make all this a team, a cohesive team. What kind of cement make it stick? Recruiting was just the start. Now you have to create the team, a strong team, which will be cohesive. So the first thing is the way the style with which you will manage these people. It all depends on their ability, their technical capability, but also their confidence in themselves. People can be maybe not very able, not a lot of expertise, and insecure. Then you will have to direct them. People may be, on the contrary, very capable and very confident. Then you have to delegate to them. If people are confident but they don't have expertise, you should support them. You should make them more expert by teaching them, by bringing them tools, by setting their goals, by helping them, by solving their problems, right? Just to make them more able, because they are confident enough to take action. If people are capable but they're not very willing, they're not very active, then you have to motivate them, to energize them, to bring them vision. How do you create the team then? First of all, a team is made of a leader and many followers. So be careful, notably because these may be challenging people, heroes, heretics, outlaws, also because they may have different opinions, polarity management. You have to make follower one accept follower two, and follower two accept follower one. And they also differentiate from the new person coming in. Some people may be kind of counter leader, right? So how to make two leaders, two big great people there, not compete with one another. Then, of course, you have to create a certain followership among people. What is followership? It's the desire to see to see the leader and to follow the leader. And you know that there's no leader without followers. So there's no leader if people don't feel like following the leader. It starts with the legitimacy of the leader. The legitimacy has to do with how the leader resonates with people's needs, with people's hope, with people's interest, and if the leader it fits their image of the values and the ideal that they have. Then all this work if there's a good balanced relationship between the leader and the new people recruited. The new people recruited will contribute. This is what they will give to the leader, but they will also inherit from the leader. They will get the quests, the vision, the goals, the meanings, the value to be followed. The leader, on the contrary, will give opportunities, give projects, give chances, delegate authorities. This is what the leader will give. But the leader will receive, of course, the fulfillment of his or her demands, the work of the recruitee. That balance of giving and receiving between leaders and freshly recruited people is called a psychosocial contract. If it's balanced, so if you have on both sides a balance, that will work and followers will follow. If this is unbalanced and the recruitee gives too much and doesn't receive enough, or the leader gives too much and doesn't receive enough, then the psychosocial contract breaks and we never integrate the recruitee. At the very end, followership is also made of trust. It's an emotional stability in which people are able to tolerate mistakes because they trust others. So trust is an emotional inertia which is based on the generalization of an idea, which is which is that the leader, even if the leader makes some mistakes, is worth to be followed. Then once recruitees have been recruited, right, we need to transform them into genuine followers, right? So they start by, when they enter the team, they don't know your quest, they don't see the interest. You have to make them aware of what you're looking for, of what you're after, create an understanding. It's a cognitive change. Their concern grows. Then, when they've understood what you're after, they need to understand exactly to make it their own quests, their own legacy. So you bring the rationale, you bring the tools, you bring the methods. It's a rational change. They appropriate what you're after as their own thing. And then the last step of this transformation of the people freshly recruited into genuine followers is that if they start to be motivated, if they start to be enthusiastic, if they start to be militants of what you're after, they will advocate you, they will take initiative, they will transform themselves into entrepreneurs. This is an emotional change. So the transformation of people entering the team follows that process of cognitive change, rational change, and emotional change. So how can we accompany that so-called conversion? The cognitive change first, to make them aware, to make them feel, to make them understand what we're after. Tell them stories, good examples of exemplify what you're after. Make them work on business case, explain a business case, educate them, train them. When they are sensitive to it, when this cognitive change has happened, try to make them more fit for action, right? Involve them in projects, involve them in workshops, involve them at higher levels, put them in contact with higher levels in the organization so that they build the rational tooling necessary to be efficient. When they've done that, motivate them, create that emotional change by providing them a career path, giving them visibility, recognize them, speak about them to others, reward them, right? And that will create the necessary positive emotions. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. This is the end of this webinar. You have the possibility of asking questions in the chat. So don't hesitate. We still have a few minutes to discuss. If you write questions in the chat, I will read them and hope, if possible, to answer them. So there's a question in French that I will translate in English. How to detect heroes among collaborators. Usually heroes have had prominent results. They're holding a business case. They're holding a success story. Maybe not in procurement, though. They may be, they have done something fantastic in sales, in finance, in production, etc., etc. But in this something fantastic, there's clearly something that is, within bracket, recyclable in procurement. So try to have that kind of organizational intelligence to try to know people, detect people, understand what have been the endeavors which in reality can be useful to procurement. Any other question, ladies and gentlemen? No more question? Then thank you very much. And I hope to see you again in one of our future webinars or events at the EIPM. Thank you so much.